For 8 years, Joe was the last one in the room whenever I faced a big decision. He made me a better president, and he's got the character and the experience to make us a better country.
Back with us again tonight, two veterans of the Obama White House. David Plouffe, former campaign manager and senior advisor. His latest work is A Citizen's Guide to Beating Donald Trump. And Robert Gibbs, former campaign senior advisor, former White House press secretary under President Obama. And David, I know that you had a role in the crafting of tonight's remarks, and I know that no one need remind you, writing it is one thing. It's in the delivery. And I contend we saw something altogether different tonight.
Oh, that was Barack Obama's speech. It's in idea, in writing, in delivery. I've obviously helped on a lot of speeches through the years, as has Robert, watched a gazillion of them. And there's never been one like that. I mean, I think he often used to talk about the fierce urgency of now that Dr. King talked about. And I think urgency, truth, one of his signature lines back in 2008 that he would often say when he was president was, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. And that's what he did tonight. And I think it was, even for me, I'd seen the speech ahead of time. It's alarming to hear it. He's basically saying, if this election goes to Donald Trump, our democracy could be over. And that's the truth as he sees it. And I violently believe with it. So I hope what comes out of this speech is people who are going to work 5 hours a week, work 10. People who weren't sure they were going to vote early, vote as early as they can. People understanding the stakes. So it was a historical speech, really, because we had a former president who loves democracy as much as he loves anything other than his family, say that it's all on the line. But I thought his delivery, the speech itself was powerful, but the delivery was incredibly powerful. And again, I think like Michelle's Obama speeches, actually the fact that it was not in front of a big hall, I think was very helpful. I think it really helped set the stage, not just we the people and the Constitution in the background, but there was an intimacy to his call to action and his urgency. And I think we all need to heed it. And if we don't, the whole enterprise could be over, Brian.
Well, that was Robert Gibbs. That was, of course, the undercurrent. That's what historians will take away from tonight, that the American people, absent campaign hyperbole, were told for the first time in their history by a former occupant of the Oval Office that democracy itself is under threat. And I also, Robert, want to read you the work of Peter Baker in today's New York Times. This is adjacent. After watching President Trump systematically demolish many of his achievements, Mr. Obama has almost as much at stake in this year's campaign as his former vice president and his party's 2020 presidential nominee, Joe Biden, does. A second chance to redeem his legacy and prove to history that Mr. Trump's election was an anomaly, not a permanent repudiation. Robert, all that leaves out, in making it personal, both can be true at the same time. All that leaves out is, by the way, folks, your democracy is in danger.
Well, and I think he did a remarkable job setting out the stakes of what is on the line in November. And I agree with David. I've heard that line of fierce urgency of now from Barack Obama so many times, and you could feel it. Look, I thought he was overcome by emotion walking us through that argument. I think it was also important, if you take this back to his 2004 speech, he also attacks the cynicism of letting this moment get the most of you and what you have to do to pull yourself up and become involved. And I wholeheartedly agree with David. I think the idea, both with Michelle's speech and with Barack's speech tonight, the ability for us to not pay attention to the crowd shots or funny hats or having them try to talk over a crowd, we could focus one-on-one. I felt like with Michelle's speech, I felt like I was having coffee with her. With Barack's speech, I felt like I was in the backyard at a barbecue and he was walking through what's at stake. And I think that will become more powerful and more consequential as we re-listen to those words. It wasn't a lecture. It was just a simple, here's what's at stake. Take it from me. I'm one of the few people in the country's history that has sat in that office and made those decisions.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.